If we're not deliberate in how we create things, what we do is we overwhelm our audiences. We shove too much time and information into what we're presenting. And most of the time it's from a great place. We believe that's how we add value. We believe that's how we're of service. We believe that's how we show people everything we're capable of. We believe that's how we get people to take on everything that we want. But here's the truth. When you overwhelm a person neurologically, psychologically, when you overwhelm them from a brain perspective, they don't sit there and mentally sift through the bits that they want to take. They actually delete everything that you've given them. So this is episode 14 and I am really excited. We've got a couple more episodes of taking you through the philosophies and the principles underpinning the success for our clients before we get into the tactical teaching, the strategies, the techniques. And I'm really excited to be getting to that stage where we can start to share more tangible and tactical things with you. On the way through though, what became important as we were putting this series together is that we're able to share our philosophies and principles with you around what we believe creates the success for our clients. And in this particular episode, what we're going to be running you through is our 5 keys to powerful speaking. Everybody wants to be a really powerful speaker. Everybody wants to make sure that they can magnetize an audience and that an audience loves to hear from them and that they get repeat business, they get paid well, all the things. They all come down to powerful speaking. Powerful speaking is predicated on understanding the principles of impact and influence. Powerful speaking is predicated on you being willing to step into an arena and find your voice and speak up and speak out about what you know to be true about the world through your lived and worked experience. Powerful speaking comes from somewhere deep inside, not just from what makes sense to you and your head through the logical parts of our brain. So the 5 keys to powerful speaking in our world are these. Deliberately moving your audience is number 1. Number 2 is our blue apple strategy. Number 3 is avoiding the clever trap. Number 4 is magnetic and compelling stories. And number 5 is getting to conversational ease. Now we know when we pull all 5 of those together that our clients' chances of success far outstrip any of their competitors. And there's a reason for it. So I'm going to run you quite briefly through those 5 principles and we're going to unpack them a lot more and give you the how-tos in future episodes of this series. So the first principle, or the first key, is deliberately moving your audience. Now, what's really interesting with this one is I quite often have people say, Jack, I speak off the cuff. I'm really good. It's how I sound authentic. People really like it. It works for me. I always get asked back. And I get that. But my challenge to everybody who actually has that response when we think about deliberately moving our audience is this. What if you could do it better, faster, more predictably, and more repeatably? Now, most people, when I put that question to them, actually change their stance. They may never admit that I have their attention, but you can see their brains almost click into gear. The thought of deliberately moving their audience does 2 things. Number 1, it intrigues them that maybe they could be better. And number 2, quite often the vocalized response is, but I don't want to manipulate people. And this is not about manipulating people. I want you to think about when you listen to an incredible speaker, when you watch a phenomenal movie, when you read a book that you just can't put down. What it is they are deliberately moving you through a story or a story sequence that you can't help but follow. What they're doing is they're deliberately moving you from where you are now to where they want you to be, to where you never expected to be. Now, the only way that we can do that in speaking, in writing books, in producing movies, the only way we can do that is by deliberately moving our audiences. There is no doubt that if you shoot from the hip and speak off the cuff and all those other variations of that I get told, there is no doubt that you can take people from where they are now to where you want them to be. But being able to take people and transport them to a place they never expected to be, that's a deliberate move. We can only do that through having frameworks and structures that work. So let me explain the distinction that we make in our world between frameworks and structures. We actually start with structures. So structures are very prescriptive, very deliberately designed to move audiences from one place to another. So to take them from where they are now to where you want them to be, and then finally to where they never expected to be. And that is where surprise and delight comes in. That is where we actually get people opening and expanding awareness. That is where we get people trusting that you should be the one to guide them on the next step of whatever it might be. Now, structures are deliberately created. They're fit for purpose. So we need to understand what it is you want to achieve, the sorts of audience you'll be speaking for, your key drivers for speaking. We need to understand all of those and your archetype, who you are as a true core identity as a speaker. So we need to understand all of that, because the structures that we work with, and we have 6 key structures plus a couple of supplementary structures. We have 6 key structures that we use, and they have to be fit for purpose to work. Now, why I say structures and frameworks is because we start with structure, and then once we've actually taught you how to put what we call pure form structure together, we then work out which bits we need to break for you. And this is where it becomes frameworks. This is where we make sure that nobody sounds like anybody else. This is where we make sure that you can't tell that a speaker has been trained in our methodology. This is where we make sure that you shine. It is also not manipulative, despite the concerns of many that it is. This is actually honoring of your audience. It means that you don't go off on tangents. It means that you deliver something of value. It means that you keep on track to a promise that you've made in the headlines or the introduction. It is actually more honoring of your audience to understand the structures that are fit for purpose, to get to know them well enough that you can break the rules that you need to for you and create your own frameworks so that you can actually take them from where they are now to where you want them to be, to where they never expected to be. Because when you actually truly, deeply surprise and delight people, there's no better place to land. So we work with our people to make sure that they can deliberately move their audience in a place of service to that audience. So that's the first one. The second one is our Blue Apple strategy. And how I want you to think about this is, I've mentioned already books and movies. So books and movies have controlling arguments or central ideas that create a through line. And the traditional original format of the TED Talk is based on a through line. And what a through line means, or a controlling argument or a central idea, what this means is that there is a through line against which everything makes sense. There's no off ramps, there's no tangents. I was just actually speaking to someone earlier before recording this particular podcast, and she was talking about a speaker that she loves. And she said, you know, he goes off on incredible tangents and takes him a long time to come back, but I kind of forgive him because he's so endearing. Now, most of us don't have that level of being endearing to an audience that we can get away with it. So a through line makes sure that we stay on point, on message, on track. We keep it tight. We don't have off ramps. We don't have tangents, and our audience can stay with us and feel as though we've actually honored and valued their time. It's also the only way that we truly can take people from head to heart. So Blue Apple's strategy is our way. It's a series of questions that we ask. It is our way of actually creating a controlling argument or a central idea or a through line. And this is the thing as well. When we use Blue Apple strategy, we're able to tell whether something should be spoken about in keynote format, business presentation, something that's longer form spoken content, or not. Quite simply, if the Blue Apple strategy won't work up, the topic gets ditched, no matter how much you love it. And it's become our guiding light, our North Star, our compass. That's the Blue Apple strategy. The third thing that we do is we make sure that we work with our clients to avoid the clever trap. And now what I mean by the clever trap, and we touched on it a little bit in the previous episode with the focus map, but what I mean by the clever trap in this instance is deliberately designing our structures and our frameworks so that you don't overwhelm the audience. So the clever trap shows up in the first place that we spoke about in the previous episode with, how do I land on one idea? How do I know what idea to do? But then once we get into presenting, we're not deliberate in how we create things. What we do is we overwhelm our audiences. We shove too much time and information into what we're presenting, and most of the time it's from a great place. We believe that's how we add value. We believe that's how we're of service. We believe that's how we show people everything we're capable of. We believe that's how we get people to take on everything that we want. But here's the truth. When you overwhelm a person neurologically, psychologically, when you overwhelm them from a brain perspective, they don't sit there and mentally sift through the bits that they want to take. they actually delete everything that you've given them. And this is something that is really important for you to understand. It was one of the most illuminating things I had to learn when I first started to speak 22 years ago. And that was this. Everybody I spoke for and the rooms that I spoke in, everybody loved my energy. Everybody loved my ideas. Everybody loved seeing me again. It wasn't like I wasn't in demand. It wasn't like they didn't enjoy speaking, but nobody could actually remember what I'd spoken about. It was because I was coming from such a place of service and gratitude to have this privilege to speak to people that every time I spoke, I crammed as much as possible in all the ideas, all the strategies, all the techniques, all the perspectives, all the insights, all the things that I knew to be true about that topic. And all that happened was that they could remember the feeling, but not the thing. And it's actually heartbreaking and devastating. The other thing is when people just remember how you made them feel and not also what you gave them, you will always struggle to be bookable, referable, and you will always struggle to get that repeatable, predictable pipeline of speaking opportunities for whatever reason you need it for. So you need to actually make sure that you step back from the clever trap. The best piece of advice I was given years ago is that when you are given the opportunity to speak, whether it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 or 60 or longer, that time period, that window of opportunity you have is about bringing the best of you, not all of you. So don't overwhelm, because if you send audiences into overwhelm with too many ideas, too much information, too many concepts, too many questions, too many strategies, they don't take away what works for them. They delete everything. And I really want you to understand that. I see this mistake all the time. So the third thing that we're going to do with all of our clients is we make sure that we avoid the clever trap. So what we did earlier with the focus map in a previous episode, that is just the start. We layer things into the way that we create and build our structures and our frameworks to ensure that every step of the way we are going to have our audiences leaning in, loving what we're giving them and healing the content, being able to absorb it and wanting more. Right? We are not going to overwhelm our audiences. The fourth thing is we get our clients across the power of magnetic and compelling stories. Now, what is really interesting with storytelling is this. There is not a single person on the planet right now, except for maybe deep in the burrows of some tech development companies, that don't understand how important stories are. Actually, that's not true. I worked with a group of scientists, high-performance scientists, about 18 months ago, and they really hated storytelling to an extreme level, but that's a story and a conversation for another day. The power of stories is undoubted. We all know that it's important. Yet, if I'm in a room and I ask you to put your hand up about whether or not you've ever heard a bad story and whether or not you hear someone speak and you think, well, that's time I'm never going to get back, knowing that stories are important is not translating into becoming compelling storytellers. So we have a range of things that we walk our clients through, and I'll walk you through as much as I can on this podcast series that teach you how to turn your stories into beautifully shaped, magnetic and compelling stories. And that is really key to understanding how to actually captivate an audience and to step into really powerful speaking. If you think about the most powerful speaking you've ever heard, even if it was data and research that shocked you to your core, there was a story around it somewhere. Magnetic and compelling stories. Number 4, the fourth key to powerful speaking. Actually, you cannot become a powerful speaker if you won't lean in to how important this is for you and investing in the craft of story shaping and that creation of magnetic and compelling stories. The fifth key, as I mentioned before, is getting to conversational ease. So this is really important. When I ask what people don't like about other speakers, that they want to make sure that they avoid themselves, is sounding too polished, too rehearsed, too perfect. They see that as inauthentic, as unreachable, as maybe constructed rather than true. And the thing is that what we want to get people to is conversational ease. Now, we don't get there without all the things we've just spoken about coming into play first. We actually do script our speeches with our clients, and we don't script them for people to rehearse. We have a whole strategy around how we do it so that We are delivering script perfect, but not word perfect. And when we do that, we're able to get to conversational ease. We cannot go straight to conversational ease and still be in demand and still be powerful if we don't understand all the elements that come together. So we do actually focus on getting you to a point where you are speaking with conversational ease. I remember one of my colleagues saying one day that every time she creates a new keynote, she'll walk around the house when she thinks she's got it nailed. She'll walk around the house in the morning. She has young children, saying it out loud. And she knows that she's at conversational ease at a time when one of her kids can interrupt her and she can go and get a glass of orange juice or do their shoelaces up and then return to whatever she's doing, talking out loud, and just pick up where she left off. It is literally getting to that level of comfort with it so that everything else can flow. Powerful speaking is not an accident. Powerful speaking is a deliberate act and a deliberate play. If you want to understand how to speak more powerfully, then please stay with us as we unfold as much as we possibly can over this next year or two through this podcast. And I say year or two because there's that many things to talk about and to bring to you in bite-sized pieces as we move through how to turn you into the most powerful speaking version of you possible.